My name is Isabel, and I'm 20 years old. If I rewind time, I was only 8 when my parents decided to separate. I lived with mom and dad, a busy Parisian businessman who became an occasional visitor in my life. Mom quickly found love again with a baker from the Jean region, Uncle Pierre. As for Dad, he also rebuilt his life with a new partner. I grew up observing their new lives, trying not to interfere. Mom and Uncle Pierre lived in a small 2-room apartment in a white stone building, not far from the Brillard Canal. Pierre was a good but strict man, and I always felt like a temporary guest. Of course, he loved me and took care of me, but I couldn't do what I wanted, unlike my school friends. No skirts that were too short, no flashy makeup, no overly free behavior. Everything was strictly controlled, and let's not even talk about having my own room. Mom and I slept in one room, while Pierre occupied the other. I envied my classmates who bragged about having their own spaces where they could listen to music, put on makeup, and do whatever they pleased without being watched. At 15, I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. The tension between Mom and Dad was growing. Dad wanted me to move in with him in Paris, thinking I'd be better off there. Mom, of course, opposed it, but after long arguments and tears, she gave in. I was overjoyed. Dad was a modern man, crowned with success in his luxury fashion business, and he always seemed like the kindest, most understanding man in the world. I finally packed my bags. Dad lived in a vast Haussmannian apartment with high ceilings and creaky wooden floors in the heart of Paris's 16th arrondissement. He had his own showroom and spared no expense. When I arrived, he showed me my new room. It was a dream, large, bright, with huge windows and a small balcony overlooking a courtyard full of wisteria. On the walls hung posters of my favorite French rock bands, and on the nightstand was a small laptop. The entire room was decorated in my favorite colors, with heavy navy velvet curtains at the windows. I felt like a princess. His partner, Aunt Sylvie, was a gentle and somewhat shy woman, a fashion designer. She had no children and seemed to treat me like her own daughter. She always tried to please me, cooking my favorite dishes like coq au vin or blanquette de veau and helping me with my French homework. Sometimes, I saw sadness in her eyes. Perhaps she felt lonely. At one point, I felt sorry for her. 2 years later, Aunt Sylvie fell gravely ill. Despite all of Dad's efforts, hiring the best specialists at Petit-Salpêtrière Hospital, she passed away. We were left alone. To keep Dad from feeling so sad and lonely, I took on all the household chores. I cooked, cleaned, did the laundry, and felt like I was managing wonderfully. I was 17 then. One day, Mom came to visit us. She saw how much I'd grown and how much I resembled her. Our appearance had always been very similar. Mom suggested I move back with her, saying Uncle Pierre had become much more lenient and that we could get along well. But I flatly refused. I didn't want to leave Dad alone, and life in Paris suited me far more than Jean. Dad supported me, telling Mom I would stay with him. He was still young, athletic, full of energy, and I could see my presence brought him joy. I stayed, the years passed, and I turned 20. I became a beautiful, confident young woman. I had many suitors. Every time one of them came to see me, Dad would greet them with tension, coldness, and silence, eventually finding an excuse to push them away. He always said I was too young to marry and that I should live for myself. Of course, I didn't argue with him. I saw that he was sad, and it seemed he simply didn't want to let me go. One night, after another failed date, I sat with Dad in the kitchen and asked, "Dad, why do you push everyone away? Don't you want me to get married?" He stayed silent for a moment, then replied, "I just don't know how I'd live without you. I've grown used to you. You're my only joy." I was moved. Of course, I told him I'd never leave him and that I'd visit him every day if I got married. And if he wanted, he could even live with my future husband and me. Dad smiled and said, Well, we'll see about that. For now, let's enjoy the moment. After that conversation, our relationship grew even closer. We spent more time together. Dad invited me to parties, took me to the best restaurants in Paris, and gave me expensive gifts. He was so happy when I wore what he bought me. He always told me I was the most beautiful, the smartest, the best daughter. I blossomed under his gaze. One day, while cleaning his room, I saw something strange. On the floor near his bed was a small bottle of luxury men's cream that he always hid. I knew what it was, but I didn't want to believe it. I thought I needed to talk to him about it. It was normal for a man. He deserved to be happy. I decided to bring it up. That evening, as we sat in the living room, I approached him as delicately as possible and said, "Dad, I know you need a woman. You deserve to be happy. Why don't you look for someone?" Dad looked at me with surprise, then a hint of offense, and replied, "What are you talking about? How do you know these things? Are you going through my stuff?" He was angry. I was scared but gathered my courage and explained, "Dad, I'm an adult now. I'm 20 and it's normal. I just want you to be happy." He looked at me, sighed, and said, "I'm happy with you." I didn't know what to say. I felt uneasy. I decided never to bring it up again. A few days later, Dad called me into his room. I sat on the bed, and he sat next to me, so close I could feel his warmth. He said, "Isabel, you've grown so much. You're so beautiful. I want to protect you from everyone." He stroked my hair, and I felt shivers run through my body. He pulled me close and hugged me tenderly. I felt like a little girl in his arms. He said, "Isabel, I'm sorry for being so strict with you for so long. I was just afraid of losing you." Then I felt something strange. His hand was where it shouldn't have been. My heart raced. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to pull away, but he held me firmly. He began kissing my neck, my hair. I didn't understand what was happening. I was horrified, but at the same time, I liked it. I closed my eyes. I was so confused I couldn't say a word. He whispered softly, "Isabel, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to get married. I want you to be mine alone." I realized something very serious was happening, but I couldn't do anything. He was my father, and I couldn't contradict him. He lifted me in his arms and laid me on the bed. He looked at me, his eyes full of fire. I didn't know what to expect. I was scared but also drawn to him. He was so strong, so dominant. I couldn't resist. I lay there looking at him. I woke up in my bed sweating. My heart was pounding as if I'd run the Paris Marathon. No one was beside me, just me and the moonlight filtering through the curtains. I couldn't remember how I'd ended up in my room. The memories of the previous night were blurry, as if I'd been someone else. I looked at myself in the mirror. There stood a girl with messy hair and red eyes. On my neck, I saw a small mark. It was a trace of his beard or his teeth. I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to forget. I took a shower, put on my favorite satin pajamas, drank a glass of water, and tried to calm down. I thought maybe it was just a nightmare, that I'd imagined it all, but my memory told me otherwise. I remembered his warm hands, his breath, his scent. I remembered how he whispered words that made me feel a strange warmth. I remembered him saying I was his property, that I had to belong only to him. I sat in my room, too scared to leave. I was afraid to see him. I was afraid it would happen again. I didn't know exactly what I was afraid of. I was afraid he'd hold me in his arms again, that he'd kiss me. It was terrifying, but at the same time, I found some pleasure in it. I was so confused, so lost. Finally, I realized I couldn't stay in my room forever. I needed to go out and talk to him. I needed to understand what had happened. I left my room and went to the kitchen. Dad was sitting at the table, drinking coffee. He looked as usual, handsome, confident. But in his eyes, I saw something new, something that made me tremble, something that existed between us. He smiled and said, "Good morning, my little Isabel. Did you sleep well?" I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. He stood up, approached me, and kissed my forehead. His touch was warm, tender. He said, "Forgive me, my little Isabel. I didn't mean to scare you. It's just that I can't live without you." He hugged me. I felt his hands on my waist, his head on my shoulder. I felt his dark essence in my hair. I couldn't resist. I stood there, hugging him back. I felt my heart beating, my skin burning. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what to do. He pulled away and said, "Tonight, I want you to wear that dress I bought you. You remember the red one? We'll go to a restaurant, and then we'll watch a movie together, like before." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. I was under his power. I was his property. That evening, I put on the dress. It was a fitted red silk dress that accentuated my figure, with a plunging neckline and a hem just above the knee. It was too daring for me, but I couldn't refuse. I felt uncomfortable but beautiful at the same time. I slipped on black high-heeled pumps, applied light makeup that highlighted my eyes, and left my room. Dad was waiting in the living room, dressed in a tailored black Dior suit. He looked stunning. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. He said, "My little Isabel, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen." I blushed but loved it. He took my hand, and we went out. We dined at an expensive restaurant, Le Jules Verne, on the second floor of the Eiffel Tower. He was attentive, affectionate. He told funny stories, complimented me. I felt like a princess. I forgot everything. I forgot what had happened. I was just enjoying the moment. After dinner, we returned home. Dad put on a movie, sat next to me, and held me in his arms. I felt his hand on my waist, his breath. He whispered words again that made me feel warmth. He said again that I was his property, that I had to belong only to him. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. I was under his power, his property, and I didn't want to resist. Dad leaned in slowly. His eyes were burning. He kissed me, not like a father kisses his daughter, but like a man kisses a woman. I tasted coffee in his cigars, felt his scent, his warmth. He kissed me tenderly but insistently, as if to say I was his property. My head spun. I closed my eyes. I felt like I was floating in a current, unable to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted it to continue. He pulled away and looked at me. His eyes were filled with love, tenderness, but also something wild, primal. He said, "My little Isabel, you're mine. You're mine forever. I'll never let you be with anyone else." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. I was his. From that day, everything changed. Our relationship became even more intimate. We spent all our time together. He no longer allowed me to see my friends or go out with boys. He wanted me to be only with him. He was my world, and I was his. He bought me designer clothes, expensive jewelry from Cartier and Van Cleef and Arpels. He said I had to be the most beautiful, and I was. One day, he bought me a set of black lace lingerie with garters. I'd never worn anything like that. I was ashamed, but he convinced me to try it on. I did. When I came out of the room, his eyes lit up. He said, "My little Isabel, you're a goddess." I felt desired, a new and intoxicating sensation. He began kissing me. His hands glided over my body. I felt my body burning. I was under his power. I was his property. He lifted me in his arms and laid me on the bed. I was his lover, his slave, his doll. He did what he wanted with me, and to my great despair, I loved it. I was so confused, so lost. I knew it was wrong, a sin, but I couldn't stop. I'd become addicted to him, to his caresses, to his possessive love. I was addicted to his PowerPoint. One day, as we lay in bed, I asked him, "Dad, what will happen if Mom finds out?" He replied, "If she tries, I'll kill her. She won't dare come between us." I was scared but didn't show it. I just hugged him and said, "Dad, I love you." He smiled and said, "I love you too, my little Isabel, I love you too." We lived like this for several months. I was completely absorbed by him. He was my only son, my world. I stopped talking to my friends. I forgot about my studies. I needed nothing but him. I felt like the happiest woman in the world, but deep down, something hurt. I knew this wasn't how it should be. I knew it was abnormal, but I couldn't change anything. One day while Dad was at work, I decided to clean his room. While tidying his shelves, I found a small metal box. It was locked. I knew I shouldn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. I found the key in one of his drawers and opened it. Inside were photos of me, lots of photos. I was in different poses, different outfits. He'd taken pictures of me when I wasn't looking. I felt exposed. Under the photos was a small note. I unfolded it and read, "My little Isabel, you're mine. You'll always be mine. No one will come between us. No one. I'm ready to do anything for you. I'm ready to kill if I have to. I love you." Chills ran through my body. I felt an icy cold. I realized I was in danger. I realized he was mad. I closed the box and put it back. I went to my room, locked the door, sat on my bed, hugged my knees, and cried. I cried out of fear, out of despair, out of my own stupidity. I'd been so naive. I thought he loved me, but in reality, he was obsessed with me. I decided I had to escape. Escape before it was too late. I started packing my bags. I took money, my phone, my documents, and left the house. I walked down the street, not knowing where to go. I felt like a bird escaping its cage. I was free, but also alone. I was vulnerable. I was scared. I went to the train station. I wanted to get as far away from Paris as possible. Away from him. I bought a ticket for the first train I found. It was going to Marseille. I boarded the train and closed my eyes. I wanted to forget everything. I wanted to forget him. I wanted to forget myself. As the train approached Marseille, I watched lavender fields and pine forests pass by the window, staring blankly. I didn't know what I'd do in an unfamiliar city, but it didn't matter. The important thing was that I was far from him. In Marseille, I rented a small room in a youth hostel near the Old Port. I found a job as a waitress in a small cafe in the Pannier district, a bohemian, colorful area with narrow, charming streets. I lived alone, without friends or family, but it was fine. I felt safe. I felt like I could start over. 6 months passed. I met a boy named Julian. He was kind, intelligent, funny. He was an architecture student at the National School of Architecture in Marseille and worked as a bartender to pay for his studies. He loved me for who I was. He didn't try to change or control me. We started dating, and I felt like the happiest woman in the world. I thought I'd found my love, my destiny. One evening, in a small seafood restaurant by the port, Julian proposed to me. I was so happy I couldn't hold back my tears. I accepted without hesitation. We began planning the wedding. I chose my wedding dress, a simple Calais lace gown with a short train. Julian bought white gold rings, discreet and elegant. I thought my life was finally in order. I thought I'd forgotten him, my father. But I was wrong. On the wedding day, as I stood in front of the mirror putting on my dress, I saw him. He was standing in the doorway of my small room. His eyes burned with a flame I knew too well. He said, "My little Isabel, did you think you could escape? Did you think you could marry someone else? You're mine, and you'll always be mine." I was horrified. I didn't know what to do. He approached me, took my hand, and said, "Come, we're going home to Paris." I tried to pull away, but he held me firmly. He was stronger than me. He dragged me into the street and put me in his car, a large black German sedan, and we drove off. I didn't know where he was taking me or what he would do to me. I only knew one thing. I was under his power again. I was his property again. He brought me back to our old apartment in Paris. He locked the door, lifted me in his arms, and laid me on the bed. He said, "My little Isabel, you shouldn't have done that. You're going to be punished." I didn't know what he meant. I was scared. I felt helpless, defenseless, and I started to cry. He began kissing me. His hands slid over my wedding dress, pulling it off my shoulders. I couldn't resist. I was under his power, his property. He did what he wanted with me, and I could do nothing. I was his prisoner. I thought of Julian, our wedding, our love. I thought I'd lost everything. My love, my freedom, my life. I was desperate, but deep down, a small voice whispered that this might not be the end. What if I could escape again? What if someone came to save me? The uncertainty consumed me, leaving only a mystery that time alone would resolve. My father leaned over me. He delicately tore my wedding dress, as if it were a silk veil, letting it slip off my body. I was a blank canvas, vulnerable. His hands touched my skin, burning and possessive. "My little Isabel, you're mine," he murmured, his voice thick with desire and rage. I closed my eyes, feeling tears stream down my face. It was the end of my dream, the end of my life. I was no longer the beautiful bride, but a prisoner in my own body. He kissed my neck, my shoulders, his burning kisses marking me as his property. "You'll never escape again," he whispered in my ear. "You belong to me, and I'll make you understand that." He kissed me with a wild passion that had nothing to do with fatherly love. It was a kiss of possession, of domination. He made me feel every inch of his power, his control. Then suddenly he stopped. He pulled away, his breath heavy, his dark eyes full of fire. He caressed my cheek, his touch soft again, almost tender. "Now you understand," he said, "that we cannot be separated. I'll never let you go." I nodded, my mind broken. I no longer knew who I was. I was his reflection, his thing. "Now," he continued, looking at me with a mix of love and possessiveness, "we'll live our life. Our perfect life. No one will come between us. No one." Then we heard noises from outside the apartment. It was Julian. I could hear his panicked voice, pleading to come in. "Isabel. Isabel, open the door. I know you're there. We're getting married." My father stood up with a cold, menacing smile. "You chose the wrong time to run away. You made a mistake. Now, the only person you'll see for the rest of your life is me. You're my little Isabel, and I'll keep you with me forever, no matter the cost." I was alone in that room again. My father went to the door, and I could hear Julian's voice still pleading, but I could do nothing. He slammed the door in Julian's face and